Have you progressed well into building your own tiny home, but the more you get into it, the more complicated it seems? Then come along with us as we navigate through all the options and restrictions, helping you make this dream come true. Let's go. Hey guys, Musa here from Quantum Home Improvements and Solutions. Welcome back. If this is your first time to our channel, it's great having you join us. And so I'm excited to say we're now up to stage 10 of this tiny home construction that's not so tiny. And so now this stage is very cosmetic and also practical. And so I'm going to be waterproofing this wall ready for the kitchenette. I'm also going to be putting down vinyl flooring. And then Dave from JML Joinery is coming to put the kitchenette in, the basin, and also finish off the built-in bookshelf that I started. Then after that, I'm going to do a bit of plumbing. So I'm going to connect the sink, the basin, and also the toilet. So if you haven't seen the stages prior to this one, I'll put a link for them in the descriptions below. So stage 1 is where we made the base using Orcon and Priority steel. Stage 2 is where we made the walls and had a heap of guys stand them up, and then we finished off the roof. Then stage 3 is where we made the retractable decking and we put on Merbau timber, which we got from Bunnings. And in stage 4, we used repurposed structural timber and filled in between the steel frames, which I got from my mate Tony from DNA Plastering. And then we got Charlie from Top Notch Plumbing come and do the sewer work. And then finally we put the sliding door and windows in, which we got from Braden Windows. And in stage 5 we cladded the outside with insulation and corrugated colorbond steel, which we got from Steel Roofing Supply Centre, and it looks fantastic. And in stage 6 we painted the universal beams with the help of Ryan from Auto West. We then put down the flooring, we built the internal walls in preparation for Charlie to come back and finish off the plumbing. And finally, in collaboration with Hume Doors and Timbers, we installed their Evolution internal cavity sliding doors with the one touch and soft close, which are fantastic. Then in stage 7, my mate Danny came and did the wiring for this tiny home, and Daniel from Darnie Air Conditioning ran his air conditioning wire. And then we heavily insulated the walls, put on the villa board, the plasterboard, and then I fixed the furring channels to the ceiling, and then Tony from DNA Plastering came and helped me do the setting. And in stage 8, we finished off the ensuite in collaboration with Touch Surfaces, which is where we got our tiles from, and they look fantastic. And thanks to Louie, he tiled the floors, and then with the help of Eugene, we tiled the walls, and the whole thing turned out beautiful. Then finally in stage 9, I installed the skirting boards and architraves, and my mate Mario from Croative Painting came and helped me paint this tiny home, which turned out fantastic. He did a great job. And then Daniel came and finished off all the electrical fit-offs, connected the power. Penrith Valley Glass came and installed the shower screen. And finally, Daniel from Darnie Air Conditioning came and installed the air conditioner. And so now in preparation for today, I've gone around and scraped the floors to make sure they're clean. So when you do put flooring on, you've got to make sure there's no lumps or bumps. So it is recommended before waterproofing that you use a primer. I'm going to be using Davco Prime X. It's a really good product and it increases the adhesion greatly. So now I've also gone through and marked the height that I'm going to be waterproofing to. So behind the fridge you will see the white and also the skirting board, which is why there's a little piece there. So now I've also taken off the plugs for the water pipe, and I've placed this cloth over here. It's a synthetic. I've cut it through, pushed it in, and I will be waterproofing that in to cover up the holes at the back. And I'll also be waterproofing against the wall at 90 degrees just to cover up that gap on the base for the same reason. So now the lining I used on the wall, which is the standard plasterboard lining, you can use other products. Now I've just used a standard because I knew I was going to waterproof it. Now it's not common to waterproof kitchen walls, but I'm just doing this as an extra precaution. Plus I will be tiling between the bench and the upper cupboards, so the glue is going to stick better to the membrane I'm going to be using, which is Davco K10 Plus. All right, so now I'm going to place on the primer. So before I use the roller, I'll just paint the outer edges. Okay, so now I've given the primer plenty of time to dry. So it's probably about 45 minutes or just over. So now I'm going to use K10 Plus, as I said before, which is made by Davco. So now I've got 2 brushes in here. The great thing about this product, if you keep the lid closed, it does last for a while. So first I'm going to start off with the 50mm and just give a coat around the penetration. Right, so this is the cloth I cut. I'll just put that back on. So now I'll go back over it and paint the cloth. So one thing with waterproofing, they do say to brush it on one direction, and then when you do the second coat, you brush it the other way. And one thing I've got to say, 70% of waterproofing tends to fail because of a number of meshes that are done wrong. One of it is putting the wrong amount of membrane on. Okay, so now I'm going to use the 100mm brush and just do a brush stroke both bottom and side. So now I'll just crease these over. This is not the proper technique to do waterproofing. Usually you would put a bond breaker, so neutral cured silicone in the internal corners, so it allows the membrane to flex, and this will flex up to 500%. Okay, so I've given this plenty of time to dry, in actual fact around about 24 hours. The next step is to put another coat on, as I said before. But before we do that, we get a little sharp razor and we take out any blotches anywhere. So you can imagine when I'm doing the splashback with the tiling, if there's any lumps anywhere, it's gonna cause a bit of an issue. So what I'm gonna do is just take out some of those little bumps. They're not very big. Just go nice and gentle, just cut them out. There's not many here actually. Make this nice and flat, and we're done. I'm gonna start on the flooring, and the flooring I'm gonna be using is an 8mm hybrid SPC laminate, and the SPC stands for stone, plastic, composite. And so the reason I'm using this product, because it has its own underlay, it's very tough, and it's very easy to install. And one of the biggest advantages of this product is that it's 100% waterproof. So just a quick shout out to the guys at Pluswood in Silverwater, where I bought this product. Thank you very much, guys. So I've installed vinyl flooring a couple of times, and I've got to say it's very easy, but there's a few principles you'll need to know. And so one of them is the expansion and contraction. So now I read the instructions on the box, and they say you need to allow 2 to 3 mil roughly on every edge. Now, some other people say between 5 to 6 mil. Now I'm going to be working on a different principle. So usually you would put your flooring down and then put your skirting board on. Now my skirting board's already on, and in actual fact I allowed 10 mil gap under the skirting boards for these. So another thing you need to know is the set out. And so these boards are 228 mil wide and 1524 long. When you finish your wall, you'll have an offcut. What you do is you put that offcut starting on the next row. And so you don't line up the joints, you actually let them become offset. And that way it becomes a feature as well. Now, because of this width of this tiny home is 3 meters and 20, we're gonna have a roughly about 60 mil piece left over. Whether I put it this side or that side, it doesn't really matter, but it's gonna look very, very ugly. So to do a proper set out, the best way to do it is actually set up your boards as I've done here, and basically measure out and try to even out your gaps either side or your spacings either side. So there's 12 boards here. And so now there's a gap on either side of roughly about 145 mil. And I think that'll look better than having this ugly small piece. And so the last thing you need to know is that the flooring needs to be pretty straight, and they only have a 1 millimeter tolerance. So what I'm gonna do is measure out 145 mil, allow a little bit to go under the skirting board, probably only about 5 mil, and then cut that down. Now the way to cut these, there's a number of different options. It depends what's available to you. So a lot of people commonly just use a Stanley knife or a utility knife, but you can also use a handsaw. you can use a circular saw, you can use a jigsaw or a compound drop saw. Okay, so I've gone through and marked it out, but one thing to note, if you look at this profile, you'll see there's a little lip here. Now this lip allows the next board to go in, so we're going to cut on this side, so really important to cut the right side. Okay, as easy as that. Now this will make a bit of a mess, hence why I'm doing this outside. So now just here, you'll see another little lip. This is where the next piece attaches to, but this is gonna be on the 90-degree wall coming off the west wall, so on the south wall, and that little 2mm lip, I'm just gonna cut off, it's not needed. So I'll just line this up, just see how this one fits to see if I need to cut it. Okay, so I've got a little bit of a tough cut for this one. So it's short by about 15mm. So I'm gonna have to cut a very small piece to slither into there. I'll place this down. This here, I will be going under the skirting board. It's gonna look ugly if I don't. It's gonna leave a big gap. There we go. Okay, so that's the area I need to cut and that's been squared off. Beautiful. I'll just put it in like this. All right, that's lined up, that's in place. Beautiful. Okay, so now I just cut up the last piece for this run and just take a measurement. There we go. Okay, so now I start back on this end. This is the offcut, obviously. So now I'm ready to put the next board on. So you can see the lip on the base there and this one on the top. So what you've got to do is basically just interlock them. So just sit on top, just wiggle it a bit and then just move it across. So one thing you're definitely going to do is make sure your boards are lined up before you put the next one. Beautiful. All right, so once you've got your board as far as it can go and everything's straight and lined up perfectly, then you need to tap that board in further to lock it in at that last on the join. So now there's a couple of techniques you can use. For now, I'm going to be using the timber and hammer. Okay, it's all done. Got a slight gap here. This is the last piece, very hard to get in. So what I'm going to do is get a tool to go under the skirting board and pull it across, but I'll do that later. All right, so now I'm going to start back in the lounge room. This is coming together beautifully. I have discovered actually a better way of putting these on, just sliding them in and then just tap it from this way or shake them into the most part. So you can actually shake them in. The last bit has to just be tapped in. Now, because I'm doing that, it does push the boards across to the west wall. So what I'm doing is just putting packers against areas to stop that movement. Okay guys, I've got Eugene back with me.
Hello guys.
And so Eugene's going to help me put in the toilet and the cistern. And so we actually did a video back a couple of years ago renovating Eugene's bathroom, and we used the exact same system. Now Eugene, I'm using it on the back of your recommendation. How does that toilet?
That toilet is fantastic. I've used it for 2 years. I've never really had to clean it. It kind of flushes by itself.
It does a clean flush.
Yeah.
So this is called the Lunar Clean Flush, made by Caroma, and it's a great toilet. I've had a number of people tell me since that video was released how good this toilet is. So everything's fallen into place. I finished off the flooring. It turned out fantastic. That door turned brilliant. The main sliding door, the glass sliding door, that was beautiful. If this house is being moved, these boards they're a floating floor, and so they will move, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to lock it in by silicone everywhere. Now, if you have to change boards in the future, all you've got to do is cut that silicone out and remove the boards, starting from the door in this case, back to where the damage is, replace that board, and then work your way back. So Eugene, you ready to put the toilet in?
Let's go.
That's it. Okay, so we've just taken out the system, we've checked it out. Now the system sits to the back of the wall this way here. Now inside, you'll see where the inlet is, and this is the inlet here. On the other side, there's a plug. Now that plug can be swapped over. You can change them over depending on which side your tap is on. All right, so now what we have to do here is make this watertight where the flushing comes through. So the water will come from the system into the bowl. Now the only way you're going to be able to do that properly is by sticking on this foam. Very important to put this on. Beautiful. Perfect, Eugene. This toilet doesn't come with its own hose, but luckily I've got a few spare. So I've just put two together to make the length I need. So I'll just put this one on. Okay, so now you've got to put the system directly over the holes, and you can see them, they line up. So now using these screws, we're going to place these in. It's very tight. Okay, so now we're going to put on the toilet seat. Okay, so you've got a really weird device here. In actual fact, it's supposed to be this way. Now, this actually is a nut that's secured by a plastic section and a metal section. And so to put it in, all you do is turn it like this, turn it sideways like that, and you put it through the hole here. Okay, so now that's secured. You now pull this down gently, like that. Okay, and then you break these off. They should just break off like that. So now these sections, this is where it sits in the seat. The seat sits on this little point section. Now there is a stainless steel washer that sits inside that oval section. So I'll put them both in. So Eugene, can you screw that one in? And I'm gonna put this one in. Okay, so once you put this on, it does lock in, and sometimes you've got to take it back out. So you can see this little grey section here, just marginally. You push that in, and that releases those little pins, and then you can take the seat back out. And this dictates to me where I need to put them. Okay. All right, so now this seat is now lined up with the bowl. Okay, so now this is where that little button is in the back. You won't be able to see it. So you push that in, and you lift that seat off. So now they're in position to the most part. And so what you do now, without moving them, you lock them off. All right, that's looking fantastic. I'll put the seat back on for the last time. Okay, so now you've got to put on the mini cistern cog before we go any further. So I'm gonna undo the plug. We don't need this anymore. Okay, so when I'm putting Teflon on, I hold it in this position. So it rolls the tape coming from underneath, and I'm gonna roll it to the right. So I'm gonna roll it clockwise. So now I'll just screw on the cistern cog. So now I'm gonna cut this off. The actual pan just needs to be flat here. Okay, beautiful. All right, so now this is the most difficult part of putting a toilet as far as I'm concerned. It's trying to get the trap in the right direction. So this is called a closed couple toilet, and the traps are brilliant. The way they've designed them these days, especially with Caroma, they've got an orbital trap here. So you basically can just move that around to gain 50 mil either left, right, back or front. So we're almost ready to put this in. And so I've got it right on the mark. And so the trap went in beautifully. Caroma do supply a sachet of grease. You will need to use that. So when I put in the telescopic sections, I then judged it and turned it to the direction I needed. I also use this grease to put in the base, to put in the actual trap inside the waist. So that's worked really well. And now I'm putting it around the pan collar. So, and you put that in. So that's now locked in. I make it a very tight fit, so I've cut this down to the distance it needs to be. So this has been adjusted, this is adjustable. And so when the pan puts pressure on here, it'll put pressure on the wall. Now, if you do need to take the pan back out, sometimes it can actually suck back and pull off the wall. That's why people put screws. Now I choose not to, because I have waterproofing behind there, and the last thing I want to do is actually damage that waterproofing. And so the last thing to mention, this section of the trap had to be cut down. So what you've got to do is put a level to the back of the toilet. You measure inside the trap to the furthest point where the S-trap is, and that came up to 250 mil. So I've cut this at 240, because you need to leave room for the pan collar section so it actually can go in. Now Eugene, if you're able to just lift it up. That's it. All right, so I just felt that. Okay, that slipped in. All right, so now I'm gonna put the hose from underneath, and there it is, stopped right on the line. Okay, so I've tried to flush it just a little when it was just filling up, and it's working well. So now I'm gonna give it a proper flush. What a great system. Okay, Eugene, it's full again. I'm gonna put the lid on now. Just close that off, put it the right way. That looks fantastic. One thing I didn't mention, this is a 4.5 litre full flush and it's a 3 litre half flush. It's a really good system and it's very silent when it fills up. It doesn't make a lot of noise, which is good at night time. So Eugene, thank you very much for your help. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So just before Eugene left, it started to sprinkle. So I thought I'd just give it a rest and then come back later, and I just kept flushing it. It's probably been about 7 or 8 times. And also luckily, Dave from JML Joinery came and Eugene was able to help him unload the cabinets ready for tomorrow morning to install them. So now before I silicone the toilet, I'm gonna put these plugs in the side here. So one goes here and one goes here. And that's basically where the screws would have gone into the waterproofing. So it's a little L bracket. As I said, I'm not going to use those. All right, so now the toilet, just looking at the level here, is a little bit lopsided. So I'm going to use a wedge to actually wedge that in place, just temporarily while the silicone is going to dry. So remembering that there's a fall in the floor. When we did in stage 8 the tiling, we made the floor fall into the waste. So it falls this way and it also falls this way. Hence why we need a wedge to straighten it. That's level perfect. This silicone is for bathrooms, kitchens and laundries. And I'm just going to go up to the wedge and just stop it there, go around the wedge. Okay, so that's done. So what I'm going to do now is spray down the silicone all the way around, and then finally using the rubber. This is made by a paint partner, and it's a rubber that just squeezes all the excess silicone out. Beautiful, that is so good. You see how much silicone's there. So now I'm going to leave this for 48 hours to go hard to fully cure before using the toilet. Okay guys, I've got Dave with me from JML Joinery.
Hi guys.
So Dave, I've got to ask you, you've been in the industry for how long?
30 years now.
30 years, wow. So Dave, a lot of people comment about me waterproofing this wall. A lot of my mates come and look at it and they were wondering why I did it. Now from your perspective, can you tell me why it's a good idea?
Oh, it's definitely going extra and over. If you have any sort of leak going over the back of the splashback, just a simple seal break on the top of the bench top, that water's going down the back of the cabinet.
Yeah.
You've covered all of it.
Yeah. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, mate. Yes, we can mark it out.
So Dave, what you're doing now is just setting up to cut the taps out?
Yep.
Beautiful. So you got your laser going?
Yep. I've got all the cabinets level.
Beautiful.
Now I've measured the taps and I've worked my way up to the top where it's flat and square. And now I'm going square back down.
Beautiful. That's fantastic. Okay, so I'm just taking advantage of Dave doing those end panels, the boards, and so I'm just putting assistant cogs in. It's a lot easier for me to do this now than later. So I've just put the Teflon on. So now these assistant cogs are color coded. That's a blue, and this one's red. So red's always on the left, or in Australia anyway. All right, I'll just make sure these taps are off. So we've turned the power off, and Dave has installed the power point in here. So I'll just put the cover plate back on. Okay, we're done. So all I've got to do now is just put these cover plates on and put on assistant cogs. Okay, so I'll just stop it there. Yep. So Dave, this is the tile I'm going to be using for the splashback. So now we're going to be judged on how high we can go on the cupboard height you've made. These are 600. I'd like to go 602 maybe. Okay, so we've just got these little bits here just to hold this in place. We're going to go to the right. How much? 3 mil?
Yep.
So when Dave screws into this, he's going to be very careful. We've measured in this cavity sliding door. You've got to watch out you don't put long screws because it will actually hit the door and the door will actually falter. It will scratch the door. It will stop it from moving. So Dave just used a 35 chipboard screw on this side so we don't go past that board, that timber. And on this side, how long are you using that one?
75 mil.
75 mil, beautiful. This is the advantage of being tall. See, for me, I would have needed a ladder. All right, so these can come out, yeah?
Yep.
All right. So you're just covering up the holes now, Dave?
Yeah, mate, that's it.
Ah, beautiful, that looks good. Okay, Dave, you're going to put in the niche for the bookshelf. Whoa, moment of truth.
Measure once, fit once, recut it twice.
Oh, wow, that looks excellent. That looks really nice, eh? Dave, you're a perfectionist. This looks brilliant. Mate, thank you very much. I love it. It looks fantastic. So obviously I asked for no handles, and just under the cupboard here, you've got a bit of a lip, so you can just grab the cupboards. But what do you call this without the handles?
So this is a finger pull detail.
Wow, that looks very good. I've never seen it done with a laminate before. And so you were saying earlier that's a special machine for that?
Yeah, that's a sharp nose machine. So we put wider edge tape in there, and the machine will cut the 45 and lay the edge tape on and clean it off as it goes through.
Wow, that looks fantastic. So Dave went through and siliconed the base so the water won't get into the particle board. I've actually siliconed the top only because it's a secondary waterproofing issue. So later when I do put the tiles on, I will put a silicone around it. But if that fails, sometimes you've seen that silicone just peel off. Yeah, so if the water goes in behind, it doesn't matter because I put another row of silicone so it can't go behind.
And the waterproofing after that.
After that. Yeah, it's a secure measure.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dave, you have done an incredible job then over and above. And I've got to say, behind the scenes, Dave kept going with the broom and the vacuum cleaning everything. He's a very tidy man, very conscientious. Dave, thank you very much.
No problem, mate.
All right, it's been a couple of days and the silicone is now cured and ready to go to the next stage, which is putting on the splashback. But first I wanted to thank David for an incredible job. He did over and above what I expected, using high quality material from the board to the laminate to the stone top to the componentry. Now the componentry that he used is Bloom. Now I've been using Bloom for many years and I really like the product. And so it's a really nice soft close and also very reliable. So if you like, I'll put a link for David from JML Joinery in the descriptions below. So this stage of the video is in collaboration with Charbel from Touch Surfaces, who have a distribution network throughout Australia, and they're the ones supplied us the tile for the splashback, but also they supplied the tiles for the Ensuite, in which we did in stage 8 and turned out amazing. So whether you're looking for tiles on the lower, middle or upper end of the range, they have something to suit you. Plus they have a range of Japanese tiles called Kazoku, which is now displayed in their brand new showroom along with all their other great products. So if you like, I'll put a link for them in the descriptions below so you can find the store nearest to you through their store locator. So one thing to note, before you start tiling, just like the flooring, you need to do a set out. And so I'm going to be using 300 by 600 tiles and I'm going to place them vertically. So if I start here 300 mil and go across, that means the last tile will be finished up around about probably just over 40 mil, which is not going to look good. A little cut never looks good. So another thing to note, where the paint is, that's not going to be very good for the adhesive to stick to. I'm going to primer just the white area inside the tile. So the tile's going to come up to the cupboard here. I'm just going to go just under it. Okay, that's done. So the primer is now dry, I'm ready to go. And the glue I'm using is Davco Ultra Flex. I've been using it for many years. So it has a rubber compound in it to allow it to have a bit of movement. So what I'm going to do first is butter the back. But now I'll notch out the glue. So this is not normal, this is not standard to actually put your tiles together without a grout joint. Now I'm doing without a grout joint for two reasons. First of all, this tiny home is very heavily structured and we actually tried to pull up just one corner and the whole back end was lifting up. We couldn't actually lift it because it's all structurally strong held together, which means it's very little movement in this tiny home. It's already weighing over 6.5 ton as opposed to a normal tiny home on a trailer, which is around about 2.5 ton. So this is really heavily built, as I said, and so that I trust that. Now also the glue I'm using, the Ultraflex, which I mentioned, has a lot of give. So I'm allowing a bit of a gap here, a bit of an expansion joint on this side and a bigger one on the right side. Now I've got to measure the cut and I've got to be pretty precise. Okay, so one of the biggest killers in the building trade is silicosis. So whenever you're cutting some kind of masonry or anything that creates a lot of dust, you should really wear a respiratory mask. All right, I'll just put this back on, just gently. This is fantastic, I love it. Beautiful, no lipping. So these tiles are up higher down the back than the front, so it goes up about 20 mil higher. So I've cut this one at this cupboard height, but I'm also going to be using a trim. Now this is what I used in the bathroom. This is the last piece I've got, so I've got to do this perfectly. And so the trim basically sits on the corner here just to finish off that edge so it doesn't look ugly. And so I'm going to cut this at a 45-degree angle going that way, and then put the top on going also 45. Now most tilers don't do that, they just butt them up to each other. It is a lot quicker that way. What I'm doing does take a little preparation, a little time. And look at that, that is perfect. So I've taken off the protective plastic film on here, and now this trim is 11 mil thick, and the tiles are 10 mil. Now you can see these little holes here, these extruded bits or these cutout bits. The glue needs to go inside there. So the way that has to work, you just basically put a little bit more glue on an angle on the edges. And then I'll put the trim on top. Beautiful, let them marry up. All right, that's nice. And I'll just push that into position. So now I've got the trims in place. These are locked in, but they're gonna move a little bit. So what I'm gonna do here is sticky tape the trims down. Okay, I'll just put the last piece on. Look at that. The glue's now dry. I've gone through and taken the wedges out. I've taken the sticky tape out and gone through and cleaned it all up. And this is looking beautiful. I love it. Okay, that's all done. Okay, so now I'm going to drop in the basin into the vanity. But before I do that, I'm going to put on the waste. Now this is a pop-up waste, but this is a special one because this has an overflow. That's what this section is here. And so to have an overflow work properly, you need to have a waste that's made for the overflows. That's what these cutouts are for. You take the rubber off. There is a rubber here. I'll put this through from underneath. I'll put the rubber on and then I'll put the nut on. Now one thing to note as well, this waste is 32 mil because it's a 32 mil waste vanity. Now you can get 40, so you've got to be careful to get the right size. Okay, so I'm going to tighten this up, but not overly. Okay, so now I've just turned the vanity around so the hole's off the bench. And I'm going to put in the flick mixer, and this flick mixer is made by Caroma. Caroma is a really good brand. I tend to stick with them, hence the toilet and all the other accessories, the shower head and everything. Okay, so this part's a little bit tricky. You've got to put the hoses through the vanity hole into the flick mixer. Now this does have a cover plate. You put that on first, and then you put it through the hole, and then you screw this in. Now this is marked with red, so that's the hot, and inside you'll see it shows the H and the C. So you make sure you put it through the right hole. Okay, that's tight. You just only have to tighten it by hand. And now I'll put on the cold. I'll just make sure they're both tight. And they are. Okay, good. Okay, so now just using this black seal and metal cover and put the screws in. I'll just tighten up the nuts. Okay, done. All right, so now I'm just gonna turn the basin around and just put a bead of silicone all the way on the trim. Just as this is just a translucent. There we go. As you can see, there's a lot of silicone on there. Beautiful, that looks incredible. I'm just gonna take this label off. Basically, this label's telling you not to use any harsh chemicals when washing this basin. All right, so now once again, I'll just spray that down. All right, that's done. Woohoo! The sink for the kitchenette's a little bit different. So this is obviously round. Okay, so now you put the screw from underneath and you screw it into the plastic waste section. Now before I tighten it, you've got to make sure that this is sitting in place. So it does move a little bit. So you try to center it as best you can. Okay, so you use a flat screwdriver, but you do need a bigger one than this, but this will still work. So basically just put in one section of the screw and just turn it around. It will turn. You don't need to do these very tight at all. Okay, so now I'm going to put the flick mixer in first, unlike the basin, because it's all exposed and I can get to it, but it is going to be a little difficult. So now this is the cover plate again. I'm going to put that on, and I'm going to have to do it in reverse. So this is the hot. Now the hot is on the left. It says hot, cold. So I just put that through. Okay, just do it tight by hand. And then I'll put the other one in so they're cold. Okay, so now while I've got access, it's easy for me just to put the hoses on now. So now you put this screw in place. It's going to be a little bit tricky because I can't see what I'm doing. So you've got a rubber washer and a metal one. So basically just put it to the front. So what you do first is screw in the thread as far as it'll go, and then you put on the nut. Okay, so now just tighten that up, not too tight. Okay, so now when you buy these sinks, they do come with a template, instructions, and an ancient way of putting the sink on, which was with a rubber and some clips. Now these clips never work with a 20mm bench. Okay, so now what I'm going to do instead is turn this around and put silicone just like I did for the basin. So David has cut this perfectly and it just fits in. So you'll notice that the waste is off-centered. Now that's done for a reason. Sometimes your waste coming through your floors are not in the right position or through your walls. And so what you have to do is turn it the closest to it. So in this case here, I'm just going to put it directly to the back. There it is. Okay, so now just go through and clean that up. Okay, so now I'm going to connect the trap to the waste. And so I can see the distance I've got there. I've got a bit of distance to travel. I'm going to put on a joiner, a connector. I'll just put that in. There we go. Now I'm going to put an in-pipe 90° into that. And it's got a cover plate. I had to cut the back because it's a bit close to the back of the cabinet. Okay, so now this is a crucial bit. You've got to put your trap in to see where it comes to, and you put your 90 and it comes, and it probably would fit about there somewhere, but I'm going to come out a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to basically make that 120mm. Okay, so I'll just slip this one in and glue the second one on. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Okay, so now I'm just doing a trial fit. I'll just put this on and get a measurement how long I need to cut the next pipe. Okay, so now we just measure from this end here, the bell end, just come down about 5mm, and then measure again up 5mm from that end of the bell end. Okay, so last one to put in. Okay, so now I just took the trap back off, and now I'm going to put the seals, the rubber. And so this is the flat washer, and you have one here as well. Okay, just close that back off again, not too tight yet. Okay, so now on this end you put the screw cap in, but this washer is a little bit different. It's wider and it's got a tapering point on both ends, and you need that to wedge into this. So you put that on, not too far. Okay, so now I'll put the trap in place. I'll close the top one off first. I'll tighten that one up. All right, and so that's done. So now I'm going to turn the taps on. I'll try the water for the first time. And there we go, the hot water's coming through. Woohoo! Okay, so now I'll just take the plug out and see if it leaks. Beautiful, no water. Okay, the door's back on. And now I'm gonna finish off this power point. I just screw it in. Beautiful, the kitchenette is now complete. Okay, so now I'm going to fit the towel ring. There's not enough room to put a towel rail. And so now I'm going to nominate this to put it between the vanity and also the cistern. And you can have it anywhere from 1 meter to probably 1.2 meters. This being porcelain tile, it's really hard to drill through. So I'm going to do a little bit of a cheat here. So it's convenient for me to have this bracket, this towel ring at the 1.2 meter height, because I'm going to go through the grout joint. All right, that's done. So now the drill bit I'm using is made by Diablo, which is an associate company to Bosch. So basically I'm going to start off with a 4mm and go to a thicker 6mm. Now one thing you've got to do before you drill through any bathroom walls is make sure you don't have any pipes. Okay, that's all the way through. All right, so now I'll just drill these holes with the 6mm. Okay, so now I'll just hammer these plugs in. You'll be very careful when you hammer plugs in because you can actually crack your tile, so be really, really careful. And the bottom of the ring holder, there is actually a grommet screw. You put this on and you just tighten it up. That's it. So now I'm doing the toilet roll holder. So now with toilet roll holders, you can either do it this way or this way, but you can see that there's a grommet on top. So you're supposed to have the grommet on the bottom so you don't see it. So this is a one directional toilet roll holder. Now, usually I go up around about 750 to 800 mil off the ground, and same to the back wall this way. And so one thing I forgot to mention, when you are measuring, you've got to make sure that you're able to put the roll on. All right, so this toilet roll holder is the same as the towel ring. They're both Caroma and they match. All right, so the final thing I'm putting on is the towel hook. So I didn't want to put a ring here because it just takes up too much room. I wanted something higher. And so what I've done is measured to the middle of this tile and marked it. And once again, I cheated on the grout line. Okay, that's in, they're all done. All right, so now I'm going to put on the mirror, and I've cut these packers here, stuck them against the wall so they won't move, and that way allows me to put the mirror on. So now the most common way to put mirrors on these days is just by putting silicone to the back and glue it on. And so when you do that, you've got to run the silicone downwards, and the reason being you get condensation in the bathroom, and if you run it horizontally, the water's just going to sit there. Okay, so now I'm just going to be really careful with this. I'll just place it on gently, put that down, move it across. All right, and just push it against the wall. Beautiful. Now, this is not going to be dead accurate. What I'm going to have to do is prop this up with a wedge to get that straight. So this mirror I got from Penrith Valley Glass. Bob came in to measure for the shower screen in stage 8, and in stage 9 the guys came and installed the shower screen and they dropped off this mirror. Okay, so now I'll fit off the vanity. So the silicone on the basin has had enough time to dry. I was a little worried about the movement. All right, so now I've connected the hoses and put them on. But now one thing I didn't mention earlier, because I'm using a 32 mil waste, I've got to use an adapter to change it to a 40 mil trap. So it does have a rubber inside to seal it. Okay, that's on. Okay, let's test it. Beautiful, this is working great. All right, now I'm gonna test the overflow. All right, so it's just broke the bank, it's now overflowing. Okay, so now I'm gonna test it, see if anything's leaking around the trap. Beautiful, no leaking. All right, stage 10 is now complete, finished, and I've asked Marion to come back, give me a hand to clean up.
Hi everyone.
And so Marion is very busy these days. She's followed in my footsteps, not that I wanted her to, and she's doing a fashion course, which I did back 40 years ago. And Marion, how are you enjoying that course?
It's good. I'm liking it a lot.
Yeah, and how about the pattern making?
It's interesting.
Do you enjoy it?
I do.
So Marion, after all the running around you and I did, choosing products and colours and all the rest, what do you think?
I think it looks great. It's nice and bright in here.
And everything's just flowing beautifully. The cupboards, the flooring, the tiles, and the paint. Mario did a beautiful job. I'm very happy with it. It's so bright in here now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And David from JML Joinery, what a beautiful job. Doesn't this kitchen look incredible?
Yeah.
And I've got to say the bathroom looks incredible. Finalising the work from Penrith Valley Glass. Thanks guys, everything looks amazing. And I'd like to thank Eugene for coming to help me put the Caroma toilet in, and all the Caroma products, they're just fantastic. I love Caroma. So one thing I also did was go outside and finish off the hot water / subboard room. So I put the same flooring down just to waterproof it a little, but also I went to Steel Roofing Supply Centre and got a flashing made up, the width or just slightly bigger than the hot water service, and then I made a tray. So I cut the edges, bent them up, and then pop rivet it all together, and then silicone, and then I put it in place. So now if the hot water service leaks at any point through the pressure valve, it'll just stay contained in the tray. And then once I put the tray in place, I siliconed underneath and then went through and drilled a hole through the flooring for the hose for the pressure valve. And so then I also got a little piece of conduit and then silicone that inside. And then once that dries, I'm gonna put the hose through that so the water goes directly through the flooring. So the only thing I've got to do now is take the chocks off under the mirror once it's dried. We're going to do a big cleanup. Then I'm going to go through and silicone around the perimeter of the skirting boards, which I was going to do earlier, but I didn't want dust to go on them. And so the next stage is the finale, where we actually consolidate everything, finish everything off. So externally, we've still got to put on a timber board on the decking, put the bracket on, put the winch up, and I'm going to demonstrate for the first time how the retractable decking works. Plus, John from Camel's Bin is going to come and drop off a bin so we can do a cleanup. Then also my mate John Mifsud, who's got a tilt truck, is going to come and demonstrate how he would move this tiny home if it needed to be moved. Then internally, I'm going to install roller blinds, which I'm getting from Covered Australia. I'm also going to put on the TV bracket and TV, and then we're going to furnish this tiny home, which is going to look amazing. And then finally, we've invited everyone who's been involved in making this tiny home to come and share with us the finale, and also to give us their feedback, what they think. Lastly, I'd like to dedicate this video to my father-in-law, Nick, who was a very good man, God rest his soul. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And if you have any comments at all, please leave them below and I will get back to you. And I'd ask you, please consider to subscribe, hit the like button and share this video, and there's many more to come. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Dave, that's fantastic. Right on the grout joint. That's fantastic. Yeah. And you can see how good I've tiled too now.
Now you're just showing off.
Yep, you go for it. Oops.
I've got sleepy hands too.